Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much to everyone who's joined in today for this SDG Teach In reflective webinar. We're just going to be reflecting on the impact of the 2024 SDG Teach In and looking at some learning, some case studies, and what we're going to take away into next year. So today we'll have a brief introduction to SOS UK. We'll look at some of the stats and achievements from the 2024 Teach-In. We'll take a look at this year's final leaderboard. And also we'll have one or two speakers just sharing a bit about their experience on engaging with the Teach-In. And we'll do a bit of reflection by asking you for feedback with this work. And then we'll go into looking at how you can take your work with education for sustainable development further, what other SOS UK programs you can participate in order to help you take that work further. We'll look over some case studies, and finally we'll also finish with some dates for your diary in terms of our report for this year and also dates for the 2025 SDG Teach-In. So thank you again, everyone, for joining. So I'm sure that many of you will be familiar with SOS UK and what we do, but I thought I'd just give a short introduction to, I guess, remind you of who we are and what we do. So SOS UK, we are an education charity, and we work to basically move sustainability from being a niche subject to really being something that a very large and diverse range of people can engage with. We want students to be able to learn all about sustainability and engage with this content. And, you know, we cohort after cohort, we want to create lots of positively driven, solution-driven students who are able to actually go into the world with the capabilities and the competencies they need to make the world a more sustainable place. So we want to really see a shift in society from this kind of obsession with the short term to really focusing on the long term and the benefits for the long term. So we want to get lots more students leading on and learning about sustainability. And we want to really embed sustainability within formal education, right from an early years perspective, all the way through to adult and workplace learning. And we want to make sure at the heart of that, we're making sustainability inclusive and accessible to everyone. So jumping straight into the SDG Teach In 2024 and looking at some of the statistics and achievements that we've had this year. So the campaign has had a really incredible reach this year. You know, we've seen a really excellent and diverse amount of educators take place and take part in it. We saw over 1,000 educators globally pledging to incorporate the SDGs into their teaching and their training and their learning, whether that be through workshops or classroom-led teaching. You know, it's been really fantastic to see the mix of that. We've had over 105,000 students and learners reached through this engagement, which has been really fantastic. And that's been a mix of both online and physical learning. And we saw 85 different educational institutions taking part, and that's inclusive of universities, colleges, primary schools, secondary schools. You know, it's been really fantastic to also see a couple of training providers, you know, in there as well. So that's really been motivating this year. Across the globe, we've seen a really, really, really wide reach. Although a majority of the educators were within, you know, England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, it's been really fantastic to also see that there's actually been some engagement globally as well. And so we've been able to see an additional 10 more countries take part compared to even last year. So it means now we've reached over 33 countries globally, and it's been really, really diverse, from Luxembourg to, you know, institutions in Jamaica, in Saudi Arabia, Kenya, Pakistan, Mexico, Nepal. It's just been a really great reach. And I think this speaks to that kind of global effort to really take ESG at the heart of sustainable change and climate action. And it shows that people are interested globally and are taking part in the capacity that they are able to. And I think that's a really positive impact of this teaching, the fact that it is so accessible to anyone, anywhere in the world, and they can really make it suitable to their context and to their teaching and their learning, and whether it's training, whether it's, formal learning, and they can really adapt that and make, the learners understand that the SDGs and sustainability is relatable to whatever context they're in and to whatever subject they may be learning or whatever training they may be undertaking. There's an element of sustainability that feeds in, whether it's well-being or whether it's, dealing with poverty or dealing with, sustainable consumption or procurement. Like there's such a wide range. And that's one of the benefits of the SDGs in framing sustainability in this kind of really wide way. So we were able to reach a really wide range of education providers. We did see most of our education be focused around higher education, further education. But I think it's still really positive, actually, because last year we saw that it was very, very, very much so the higher education institutions that were participating, and in previous years. But I think what's been really positive this year is that actually we've seen a huge growth in the participation from, further education, FE colleges, and I think that's really positive. We've also seen a slight climb in, the secondary and the primary levels. And in terms of the numbers of learners reached by the education type, we've also seen, a change in this. So we've seen over 60, almost 60,000, learners reach within higher education, over 30,000 reach within further education, over 9,000 learners reach within youth and children groups and clubs, which is really positive that we're getting into that space. We've seen a climb in the adult and community education and learning side. So all around, just really fantastic. And especially that kind of growth in the FE colleges side, it's been really positive this year. In terms of the types of courses in formal education that we were seeing taking part, I think like last year, we saw a really big lead in business and administrative studies. They've always been, the most popular subject taking part in the SDG teaching, and we saw that reflected again this year. We've also seen, the education side of courses taking a big lead as well. And there's actually a lot of other in the category, and we know oftentimes this represents, perhaps it's the business learning, perhaps it's within, training or within workshops or other things that don't fall into necessarily a formal subject area. But we want to improve on reporting on this section. And so next year we'll be looking to make some changes in that regard, so we can actually see more clear data in that other category. Now, we've had lots of goals be incorporated into teaching and learning and training. 3, I'd say, of these have been the most popular, although there is some tight competition there. Climate action has actually been the most popular goal this year, whereas last year we saw it was goal 3, which was about well-being, was the most popular. But this year we've taken over with climate action, and I think that speaks to the atmosphere of things at the moment. Students more than ever want to take climate action. They want to be empowered with the capabilities to make meaningful change, and we see that reflected as well in this. We also have a very close par with good health and well-being, as well as quality education being the most popular goals we've seen being incorporated this year. So it's really positive to be able to highlight that work as well. So looking into this year's final leaderboards, and we have 2 leaderboards each year. We have a leaderboard that reflects the educators that have pledged. And this year we've really seen, some great competition amongst FE colleges, especially. We had top of the leaderboard, of the final leaderboard this year, being Calderdale College. followed very, very closely, I'll add, by Barnsley College. Then number 3, Ulster University. So it's really nice to see that in the top 3. You know, we've got a mix of both FE and higher education. And I think it's really nice to just see that competition element driving, you know, the participation within the teaching. It's been really fantastic. So I think that's positive. And then in terms of the second leaderboard with the students reached, we've got, again, that competition between Barnsley and Calderdale College, with this time Barnsley taking the top position and Calderdale taking the second position. And what's really pleasantly surprising, actually, for me when I saw this, and I was really happy about it, was to see a primary school taking the number 3 position in terms of the reach of their participation to their student body, and seeing Hankin Primary School as the number 3 participant has been really positive, and I think really motivating for them as well, to see that the impact of their participation as well is really showing through. And we also have, of course, other amazing participants such as University of Exeter, Shipley College, Heart of Worcester College, doing some really great work there, and an international school as well, St. George's International School, who've done really fantastic work in motivating their educators to take part. So yeah, it's really great to see both universities, colleges, and also the primary school there on the Students Reached leaderboard. Now, in terms of engaging with the teaching, I think it's really sometimes difficult actually to perhaps motivate other educators, even if you're in the same department, to actually participate, even if they have some kind of interest in sustainability. It can be difficult to engage with this and to get other educators on board. So I'm going to call on Kathy, and she's going to be speaking a little bit about her experience in terms of engaging with the teaching, but also engaging with other educators to take part in this. And Kathy's going to speak to us for about 5 minutes on this. And it's going to be really positive to hear from Kathy, who is from Oxford Brookes University. But I'll let you introduce yourself, Kathy.
Hi there, thanks very much. My video won't, I can't start the video because the host has stopped it. I don't know if you're able to, otherwise I can just chat, that's fine. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, and I'm just
All right,
checking the
lovely,
video
not to
settings
worry.
now.
Okay, lovely.
Not sure if it's going to let me do it, but whilst you're speaking, I'll just fiddle with that in the background.
Okay, not to worry. Thank you very much for inviting me along, and it was great to see those leaderboards again. It was really exciting. We had a really good teach-in this year, I think, with a lot more people becoming involved. And I think one of the things I wanted to share was an initiative that we've done so that we can all learn a little bit from each other's pledges. So one of the things that we do at Brookes is we create a website for the teach-in, and we put information and some resources for staff up there to have a little bit more of an intro to sustainability, particularly for educators that are new or might be new to sustainability. And then what we asked, we created a Padlet and asked anyone who'd given a pledge basically to put up a small piece describing what they'd done, what the activity was, and to add any images or examples that they thought would be interesting. And it was a really lovely way to see what other people were doing across the university, but also to get an interdisciplinary perspective. So we got to see things from the built environment and from construction. There was genetics and ecology, I think, as well as tourism and nursing, health and nutrition. So it was just lovely to see examples of what those pledges were all in one place. And the Padlets are quite colourful place to host those. And I think it was good that we were able to see what other people were doing. So it kind of demystifies it a little bit. You just get to see lots of examples. And we had quite a few people contribute to that. So that was really lovely. And the other thing I just wanted to say was how much just how lovely it is to see the primary schools up there. So I'm also the chair of an educational charity, SEED, that works in sustainability and environmental education. And that works a lot with primary and secondary school students. And I think they would, I don't know if it's a new initiative. Is it relatively new, the inviting primary and secondary in on the Teach In, or?
It's not necessarily new, but I think we've definitely been more intentional the last sort of 2 years about really
Okay,
broadening that up and ensuring the
right.
language we're using makes them understand that they can be part of it too. And also, Kathy, your camera should hopefully work now.
Okay. Hi. Hello. So yes, those were really just the things that I wanted to share that I thought were really helpful in just being able to share and make it a little bit more participatory. Sometimes you make your pledge and it goes off into the ether, but other people don't necessarily get to learn from what you're doing. So that was one thing I think that we found really helpful. So thank you for inviting me along. I could share my screen and show you the Padlet if I've got permissions. Let me just have a little look. Would you like to see
Yeah, you
the
should be able
example?
to.
I'm not sure if you can see
Yeah,
that
we
there
can all see
now.
that. We can.
Okay.
That looks
So,
so wonderful. Yeah, I remember seeing that and I was like, this is so awesome.
ah, well, we also had our education for sustainability. We had a consultation with students. We had a sustainability expo around the same time. So there was lots of other things going on, I think, that helped encourage people along. And we had a little hope tree that you can see just down here where students added their hopes for a fairer, fitter future onto that tree. So that was included as one of our pledges as well. But you can see all
Amazing.
of the different sort of areas, from tourism and hospitality and green events to nursing and promoting health. So it was just a suggestion of maybe that would be a nice way forward for other institutions and other groups to be able to share what they're doing and generate a bit more, some more visuals around the teaching. So thanks very much for
Amazing. Thank you
inviting me
so much,
along.
Kathy. Thanks for
All right.
speaking on that. It's really wonderful to see that work.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you. Wonderful. So we're gonna, look into, we will have hopefully another speaker slightly later in the webinar. But for now, we're gonna jump into some reflections and feedback and just give you all an opportunity, particularly for those that participated, to actually reflect on the experience and perhaps what they would do differently and what they thought went really well. So we've just got some Slido questions for you coming up now, which fingers crossed will work. So the first Slido question we kind of have is talking about reflecting on your experience, what went well and what was the highlight of your SDG teaching experience. So you can access the Slido by scanning that QR code or by typing in the number 1536713 at slido.com. Okay, so we've got some responses already starting to trickle in. We'll allow a couple of minutes to allow people to type. first response we've got is saying the questions and the engagement from learners has been a really big, highlight and positive part of the experience. So I'm really glad to hear that. That's what the point of it is, isn't it? It's to get that engagement, both from educators, but a lot of the times we want learners to be engaged because we are trying to equip them with the knowledge and the skills for, sustainable development. So it's really important that learners are able to engage with this. So the conversations that have come around the purpose of education, exactly. One of the big things that we talk about here at SOS UK is repurposing the education system, for a positive, a climate positive future. We want to make sure that we are going to live in a society that is sustainable. And so repurposing the education system for sustainable development is really important. So we've got broadening the range of case studies and examples used. So looking into diversification of the curriculum and content, really important. Seeing good engagement across all faculties and directorates was a positive highlight. So yeah, really great. And I think we've got one more coming in, yeah, and having a relatively easy way to begin engaging with sustainability. And I really love this response because actually that speaks to the heart of the SDG Teach In. It's very much an introductory stepping stone into ESD and really helping people to have a tangible way to engage with sustainability in a way that is not too difficult, but it's really accessible and it's really applicable to many different contexts, whether you're in a workplace or you're in a school or you're in, a university. It's really applicable. So yeah, thank you all for sharing that. Now we have a second question. And we just had a last response come in there about debating the challenges around the SDGs being a highlight of the experience. So yeah, another great one. There are many critiques of the SDGs, I might add. And in this second question, we're just looking at reflecting on your teaching experience. What would you do differently next year if you were to participate? Whether that is in the way you prepare or in the way you present it or in the way you engage with your learners with it, how or what would you do differently? Yes, I anticipated this would be one of the first ones. So maybe planning earlier for it. That could be with maybe if there's another event that's going to go on within your institution or your workplace that's connected with sustainability, for example, you could plan that event around the same month or during that month to kind of help things flow more seamlessly. Providing more resources for educators to really equip them and enable them to actually participate. Yeah. More external comms to show what we're doing. Exactly. I think that's really positive, really highlighting the good practice going on. And co-designing with learners if possible. Exactly. So involving students in the work and saying, how would you want to learn about this? Involving the learners in that. Getting students more involved in, for example, designing activities and comms around the teaching, exactly. So again, putting students at the forefront of the work, which is exactly what we're about, all about equipping and empowering students to do this work. So that's really fantastic. And collaborating with other institutions involved. That's also a really amazing and positive consideration as well, and could breed some really positive outcomes. So yeah, that's really fantastic. Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague Sonia, and she's going to look into going further with ESD with you all and the programs that we offer here at SOS UK and how you can get involved with them to help you in your journey on education for sustainable development. Thanks,
Great.
Sonia.
Thanks, Beatrice. Thanks so much for sharing all the interesting work that's taken place so far with the Teach In. And what I want to do for the next 5 or so minutes is just talk about how we can go further with the work that we've begun or continue through the SDG Teach In. And actually, someone had mentioned it in the Slido responses about how it's been helpful to begin engaging with sustainability, and that's very much the intention of the teach-in. The idea is that there's not many barriers to taking part. It's a really helpful way to engage students as well as educators and staff members who don't feel or don't really understand whether or not the sustainability is relevant to what they're doing. So lots of positives in terms of initially getting started. And I want to share some examples of work that we're doing that we can work with you on to help you to expand that work and to go further, essentially. Yeah, the engagement with the SDGs should go beyond just a month of teaching and learning. So a couple of the things that we're doing is campaigns as well as programs, workshops, consultancy, and we're also involved in quite a bit of advocacy work. So one of our main student-led campaigns for embedding sustainability in learning and for transforming the education system is called Teach the Future. So Teach the Future is a student-led campaign to reform the entire education system around the climate emergency and the ecological crisis. It was in part because of young people's campaigning efforts through this campaign that the UK, the Department for Education actually published its sustainability and climate change strategy. And so we're now working to hold the government to account for its delivery and doing quite a bit in terms of the general election and planning around the general election. We also have a lot of our asks in Labour mandates, and a lot of Labour MPs support the campaign. So it should be interesting to kind of see what happens after July 4th around this campaign. So this campaign is open to all students. So I would encourage you and recommend that you share it with your students at universities, colleges, your schools as well, because we're always looking for students who are keen to be involved and to get some really interesting experience in politics. We also have a learning academy. So our learning academy offers off-the-shelf as well as bespoke training for students and staff, should you be looking to deliver some CPD or training on ESD or sustainability issues more widely for students and staff. And we cover topics including embedding sustainability in learning, campaigning, food and farming, around sustainability, decolonizing and decarbonizing education, and taking sustainability values into careers. So another interesting way to expand your work, or to take this the brilliant work that you've all done on the SDG Teach In further, is through our student-led sustainability curriculum mapping. So what we do through student-led sustainability curriculum mapping is we work with your students to map sustainability criteria, which includes the Sustainable Development Goals, but also other criteria around pedagogies and methods against teaching and learning. So for some institutions, this is looking at their module descriptors or their course syllabi. For other institutions, they choose to ask students to map their weekly experiences of teaching and learning. So over the past 5 years that we've been delivering the program, we've worked with 16 institutions and nearly 400 of their students and mapped countless modules, over thousands of modules and thousands of weeks of learning. Across institutions across the UK, student-led curriculum mapping has contributed to students' knowledge, their understanding, as well as transferable skills development around sustainability, auditing, teamwork, data analysis, critical thinking, and global citizenship. The work's also led to the linking of SDGs to other initiatives within the institution and or within a students' union or equivalent, has engaged teaching staff and senior leadership. It's supported reporting on the SDGs and sustainability, and it's helped identify areas of good practice and areas for improvement as well. And then the last example that I want to show you is, or talk to you about, is Responsible Futures. So Responsible Futures is our accreditation program and supported change framework for embedding sustainability through all aspects of student learning in partnership with students. So it's a really interesting way to take the work that you're doing with the SDG Teach In and place it into a cohesive, joined up framework through the program for a whole institution approach. So the program promotes a whole institution approach to embedding sustainability learning through the informal, the formal, and the subliminal curricula. And it supports the creation and the fostering of an enabling environment for sustainability and climate justice. And so the program is celebrating its 10th year this year, which is really exciting. We've actually just published in an impact report, which we can share as a follow-up resource along with the recording of this webinar. And it basically just highlights loads of different interesting work that we've been doing with partnerships who are involved in the program over the past 10 years. To date, we've worked with 48 universities and colleges and have participated. To date, we've worked with 48 institutions and colleges and worked and reached over 1 million students through them. So that's quite exciting. So what I'd like to do now is hand over to Katie Kendrick from Heart of Worcestershire. I'm just going to give Katie access, and Katie's going to talk about some of the work that Heart of Worcestershire College has been doing through the Teach In. I'm just waiting for Katie to join. Hi, Katie.
Hello, thank you. So I've just joined. I've just dashed from the school run. So
Oh, no worries. Thanks so much for joining. You should be able to share your camera if you'd like to.
That's fine. I will. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And then I'll stop sharing. Brilliant. Thanks so much, Katie.
Hello, thank you. No problem. So yeah, I think so. I'm Katie from the Heart of Worcestershire College, and so my role is a digital learning advisor. I create digital content for our Thrive program, which includes sustainability, and also I work with curriculum areas and create online content to kind of link into their courses. So I think for me, from my perspective, the best thing I think the college has done is we've got ESD champions in all areas. And we've got another a team as well, where we all kind of share ideas, resources on there. So that I think has really, really helped kind of, spread the word and get it out there and get all curriculum areas on board. So we ensure that in every area that we are embedding the SDGs into the curriculum. So I think from my perspective, from a digital side, because obviously I'm not a teacher, but it's still important, I think, that we embed these in digital learning or wherever we can, really. So what I've been doing, obviously sharing things with my team and getting them to kind of share my best practice, is that if obviously I've got a curriculum area, early years, for example, I look after, I will link SDGs to what they're learning that week, or if it's a kind of one that covers everything, like, for example, poverty, I've been using AI tools to kind of help get that link there. So because I think with our students, probably with most students, if they don't, they need to see the relevance sometimes. So I think I've been doing a lot of using AI to help with that as well, and to ask it for reflective questions to link to particular SDGs as well. So that's been really, really helpful. I have hopefully got a colleague that's also joined me that she's a teacher. Her name's Kate Lewis. I'm not sure if she's managed to join us. Is she there?
Not yet.
That's okay. She had some connection issues.
I'll keep an eye out.
That's not a problem. Well, I can share an example. So we also had a Padlet where all the curriculums could kind of add what they're doing. So more specific things. So an example that Kate was going to share, sadly she couldn't obviously join us, was her early year students created story bags, and they were tote bags. And the idea was that they obviously reached out and asked for items that they needed for the story bag. So things donated. So for example, I donated some like play food and some little tiny characters. So they could kind of create the sustainable story bags for the children in like a nursery setting, but they're all stuff that was donated, recycled, and they even did craft and put things together to put in their story bags, which obviously, all links to the climate action SDG and probably a few others. So I just thought that was a really nice example that she was going to share. So I think that's probably the most I can share at this point. Obviously, I know a bit of a time frame.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks so much, Katie. And if I do see Kate, maybe there's a way we can send a screenshot as a follow-up resources of what the Padlet
definitely
looks like, just so folks can get an idea and get some inspiration for next year's Teach-In.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Katie, for joining us. And it's really nice to have representation from universities and colleges, and to show, how different institutions engage with the Teach-In. So really appreciate your examples there.
That's okay. Thanks for having me.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. All right. Okay, fantastic. So what we'll do now is I'll share a range of case studies that have been sent in to us from educators who've taken part in the Teach-In. There's quite a few, so I'll just briefly go over some, but we will be publishing all of the case studies in our report for the year, which I will share more information on in just a moment. So the first example is from City College Plymouth. So their approach to the Teach In this year was their marketing team were releasing some information about one SDG each working day of the week, which coincided with a range of events in their Students' Union, which was organized by their Student Sustainability Group. So the college have enjoyed guest speakers from People and Planet, talking to staff and students about climate conversations with young people, as well as eco-anxiety. They also had staff training days, which involved staff being trained in all jobs are green jobs, the SDGs, and a visit to the Eden Project. And students were also delivering Teach the Teacher sessions to staff, which is another campaign that we deliver that I can send more information about. So essentially, the Student Union played a really big part in how the college has embodied sustainability and how they've engaged with the SDG Teach In. So lots of really interesting collaborations between the institution and the students. The next example is from De Montfort University. Specifically their architectural technology course. So this module advances students' knowledge in sustainable technical design strategies for buildings, preparing them for advancing environmental design projects. So the focus is on proposing solutions to achieve net zero in the built environment through responding to a design brief. So during the teach-in, emphasis was placed on integrating sustainability into teaching and learning activities. Students were introduced to passive house standards and principles, and focus on low energy building design, high insulation levels, air tightness, and other key elements. And so one of the module leaders had said, my intention for this module is to focus on RCR, which is relevant, current, and real learning to prepare architectural technologists to work on green and sustainable transitions within architecture and the built environment. So the other example that we have is from Gateshead College on responsible tourism. So their approach to the teach-in was exploring local and international tourist destinations, and specifically how key stakeholders who are involved in tourism can promote sustainable choices to their customers. So they say that the planet is currently experiencing a climate crisis. We recognize that all individuals and businesses have a responsibility to address global warming, and it's our vision as a B Corp certified company, we can play a part in protecting the environment for future generations. And I think this is one of the stakeholders that was involved in the work. Great. And then there's another example from Gateshead College around travel and tourism. So the course is about travel and tourism industry, and they looked at customer service, airports and airlines, the UK travel and tourism industry, and organizing events. So they embed sustainability and equality and diversity in everything that they do. So their approach to the teach-in this year was that they visited Newcastle Airport to learn about their facilities, products and services, and discussed how the airport was aiming to achieve net zero carbon by 2035 through retrofitting electrical charging points, planting thousands of trees and habitats on airport land, and more. So that's a really interesting example of experiential practical learning. So aiming for net zero in airports is crucial for mitigating climate change. We need to ensure that the travel industry is sustainable so we can all enjoy seeing the world in the future. We dream of exploring the world, but that dream must not come at the cost of the planet. So this is LDN apprenticeships. They focused on corporate responsibility and sustainability in their digital learning design. So their approach to the teach-in was they had apprentices join a masterclass that was focused on digital carbon footprints and digimissions, which is a word I've actually seen for the first time now, but I guess inherently kind of know what it is. That's really an interesting word. So they reviewed digital carbon footprint and calculated them. They compared different devices, apps, artificial intelligence, advertising, and cryptocurrency emissions. They reviewed the NHS source emissions as a case study as well, and used design thinking and ideation to suggest how to refuse, reduce, reuse, and recycle digi emissions. So Nicola's SDG Teach-In prompted a brilliant conversation amongst the corporate responsibility and sustainability apprentices around our less considered emission sources. Nicola highlighted the extent to which activity online has a real-world impact in terms of energy sources, infrastructure, and consumption linked to digital emissions. The session was interactive and engaging and encouraged the apprentices to reflect on the digital carbon footprints their organizations held, as well as the way in which their own personal online practices may be linked to a tangible carbon footprint. And I just have a couple more case studies for you. And I think it's quite interesting to see the range and different ways that institutions have engaged with the teach-in and different kinds of institutions as well. So this is from Keele University. the session introduced students to some basic concepts such as gender equality, the glass ceiling, and the gender pay gap in the context of SDG 5, which is gender equality and the current shortcomings. It also covered relevant classical and sociological theories and approaches that attempt to explain why issues related to gender at work still happen. So their approach to the teach-in was students were invited to explore the International Labour Organization data on gender gap in employment through their interactive website tools, choosing different countries and trying to find out what the specific barriers for women's participation in the labour force are and how that links to cultures and societies. They actively reflected on these links with other SDGs, and this will continue in another session dedicated to sustainability and well-being. I think that's really interesting because that's showing the interconnectedness of the SDGs. So this is from the educator involved in this work, exposing students to information related to countries other than the UK, covering different continents, cultures, and levels of development in the first year of their degree is key to widening their perspectives and self-awareness and to prepare them to become global citizens. And then our last case study. So this is from the University of West London on climate change and disaster-related mental health. So this module provides psychological perspectives on key issues in relation to mental health and well-being. It investigates the definition, categorization, and symptoms of common mental health problems and the social and economic determinants of health. And so in their approach to the teach-in, they had lectures on several learning outcomes mapped out against the QA benchmarks for ESD, which are by the Quality Assurance Agency, and I can send over resources if anyone has any follow-up questions around that. So this includes climate change literacy, understanding and recognizing key definitions, describing climate change, developing systems thinking by recognizing and explaining the relationship between climate change and mental health, and practice, collaboration, and problem solving with peers. So students are often not aware of how climate change may affect us here in the UK and its implications for mental health. This lecture provided key green mental health skills our communities will need to sustain us for the future. Great. So nearly at the end of the webinar, before we finish, I want to share that we will be launching the 2024 SDG Teach In report on the 20th of June. So we'll send the report as a resource to everyone who has pledged, and we'll also make sure that it's on the website. And then the dates for the next teach-in, because we did see in the Slido for what you'd like to do next year is start planning a bit earlier. The dates for the next teach-in are all of March 2025. So beginning on the 3rd of March and ending on the 31st of March. Great. Thank you all so much for attending, and we'll make sure to send over that report. And don't forget to pledge in the 2025 teach-in. So thank you all so much.